Good morning, everybody. It's brilliant. I can see people starting to join us. So good morning and welcome to this morning's webinar, all about empowering women at work. Going to give it a little bit of time just to let everybody kind of fly in. It is a cold, wet, miserable morning in Mayo this morning. I don't know what it's like around the rest of the country. And actually, as you guys are joining us and joining the session, if you can hear me, if you can see me, you might just pop into the chat and let us know that you can, and maybe give us an update from where you are across Ireland. Delighted to welcome our expert panel this morning and really looking forward to hearing what they've said. I've actually got my notebook with me for my own notes. And just so you all know, the slides and recording, everything will be available after the session. We're going to try and make it as interactive as possible. We're going to have polls, we're going to have questions, and we have lots of time for Q&A session at the end. So do keep those questions coming. And thanks to those who would have submitted questions beforehand. Oh, brilliant. You can all hear me. Morning, Anita, Lisa, Brian, Katrina, that's brilliant. I'm very jealous of you those who are in nice weather. Galway, God, they're not too far away and it's nice there. We are going to have you wrapped up and back to your desk and your emails by 11 a.m. And with that in mind, I've just got a very kind of quick couple of updates that I want to give you from a great place to work perspective. The first being we are hosting our Employer Branding Summit on January 31st of next year. A little bit scary to think about 2024 events, but there we go. It is already November. So that's going to be hosted in Epic Museum up in Dublin, and it'll be on the morning of January 31st. Everybody who attends today is actually in a sweepstake for a ticket, and actually will be following up after this with the winner. But just to give you a sense of kind of some of the brands that are already signed up and involved, and really hoping to see lots of you there on that day. You can find more information on our website on that kind of piece. Looking towards the end of the cycle, so I know most of you are in and surveyed or currently wrapping up your Great Place to Work surveys at the moment. It's either start now or we'll be talking to you next year. And for anybody on the call who would like to know kind of a little bit more about our process and how to get certified or recognized as a great place to work in 2024, you can actually jump on a webinar with Brian on Thursday, the 30th of November at 10 a.m. And he's going to take you through in half an hour kind of what it means to be a great place to work and how that all works. Okay, morning, Jenna, from a barely floating core. Okay, lots of rain still clearly down there. Okay, and into the main kind of thing that we're going to be focusing on this morning, right? So looking at this theme of empowering women at work, we really wanted to bring you kind of a range of different pieces. The nature of work is constantly evolving, as we all know. There's a lot of change at the moment. And what we're always kind of striving to look for is how places are making their workplaces a great place to work for all, and creating those consistently high trust workplaces experience, no matter who they are or what they're doing for the organization. And this is particularly true when we're looking at the experience of women in the workplace. So each year we would recognize the best workplaces for women. To give you a kind of a bit of context around that, there's all of the organizations who are involved in the Great Place to Work process. They survey, they get their data back. Those who hit their trust levels of 65% and above go on to be certified as a great place to work. From those, we recognize the top 100 organizations nationally every year. There are our best workplaces. And then from those, there's a select number that go on to be best workplaces for women. So we had 30 this year, and we've got representatives from 2 of them on the call today, which is really exciting. But it really is a premium listing and a premium recognition and a huge achievement for those who take part. The data this year represents about 16,000 working people and 1,700 female leaders in particular, right? So we were able to really look at some of the data and the themes that were coming out. Just for those of you who would like to know more, look, there's lots on the website around the criteria and there's reports from the last couple of years, but we do look at the overall experience that women have in the organization. We look at, make sure there's a minimum trust variance between the female and the male experience. We look at the number of women in manager and leadership roles, and then we look at a number of specific statements around things like being treated fairly, and the lack of favourites, career and development, work-life balance. So kind of lots of various elements that we look at in there. And from that data, then I suppose we've identified these three key themes. And I'm really excited today because actually it kind of links in with what each of our speakers are going to be bringing to us, or which each of our experts are going to be bringing today. But I just want to give you a sense of this for each of these statements. This is the current experience in our best workplaces for women, versus what's happening in our non-certified organizations. So people feeling that they're offered the training or development for themselves professionally, a big gap there, 83% amongst our best workplaces for women, 47% in an average organization. Psychologically, emotionally healthy place to work, 82% in best workplaces for women, 39% in an average organization. And then finally, people are encouraged to balance their work and personal life, up at 84% in our best workplaces for women versus 45% in kind of the average organization. So just to give you kind of a sense of what the data is showing us. And we really wanted to, like I said, deep dive into these three overall areas around how do we support people across life cycles, I suppose, both personally and professionally. How do we give clarity in both kind of our career progression, but also the kind of community that we create around us. And then how are organizations helping people commit to a work-life balance as well? So kind of a few different ways that we look at that. Really excitingly, I suppose, and most recently, we've done a little bit of extra work in here. So we would have partnered with the Menopause Hub for Best Workplaces for Women this year, and we have gone on to create the Menopause Workplace Excellence Awards. So it was their first year this year, and really thrilled that a number of our best workplaces and our great place to work, certified great places to work, were actually recognised this year, both as finalists and as winners. So huge kudos to Taylor Snack, Steve Russell, Core, Trigon Hotels, the IRFU, and Distilled. So I know Laura's going to give us more information about that shortly. But we really wanted to push on because we know at different moments in our lives, people have different requirements, and at any one moment, different people from the same, in the same team could be juggling lots of different things: early career interactions, personal financial decisions, caring responsibilities, from young children to aging parents. And it's all about kind of accommodating and understanding those. And we do see that. And through the Menopause Workplace Excellence Awards, we wanted to recognize the organizations who are going a step further in doing that pioneering work to support menopausal and perimenopausal women at work. Opening up the conversation, introducing menopause policies, providing the training for their people, making those reasonable adjustments, and just making sure that everybody still has the opportunity to contribute their talents and develop. So really, really thrilled to be a part of that, and to see so many of the organizations be recognized. Okay, that's more than enough for me. So I'm delighted now to hand over to Laura, who is the Chief People Officer for Distilled. So Distilled are both a Best Workplace for Women and a Menopause Workplace of Excellence. They won the medium category this year. Laura is responsible for HR, IT, operations, customer service, employee growth, employee well-being, kind of core elements of what Laura looks after, and ensuring that Distilled continues to be a great place to work for everybody. And when she's not looking after everybody in Distilled, I think she's probably found shouting a sideline at one of her daughter's matches. Laura, I am going to hand over to you. So over to you, Laura.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Fania. So yeah, look, thank you for the warm welcome. As Fania said, I'm Chief People Officer for Distilled. I'm sure you're all sitting at home going, who is Distilled? What do they do? We are the website staff.ie, dundeal.ie, adverts.ie, and gumtree.ie. So look, supporting our employees at every stage of their life cycle is something that we are very passionate about. So this year we got the opportunity, to take part in the Menopause Excellence Awards, which was really, really important to us. We've had a menopause policy in place since 1999. As with any other policy, we've revised it, edited it, to keep up to speed kind of with where things are. So it was great to be able to, partake in those awards, showcase what we're doing and see how it compared to the industry standard. So look, just to get started, I mean, a poll has just been shared. It'd be great if everyone could just let us know, whether they have a policy in place. So as we can see there, 17% do, 17% have support but no policy, and still 56% have no support or policy in place. So hopefully today what I'm about to tell you about will help you bring something back to your organizations and really think about how you can support the women in your workplace, whether it's through the early stages of perimenopause or whether it's menopause itself. And it's not just the women in your workplace. We have male allies as well. They have sisters, they have wives, they have mothers, they have friends who are going through this as well. And I think it's just really important to build awareness around menopause and perimenopause. So in terms of kind of what we've done in Distilled, so obviously we have our policy, but a huge part of it is, breaking that stigma. Personally, I'd be in the stages of perimenopause myself. And, one of the things that I have experienced is the brain fog. And I would have always prided myself on never forgetting a name, having a really good memory. So when that started kicking in, I found myself at the GPs. I was like, what's going on? I can't remember people's names. The GP was just kind of looking at me saying, you're fine, it's nothing. Then I educated myself some more. I figured out what was going on. And then to even, I sit on the leadership team here in Distilled, and to be able to sit and say to the team, look, I'm going through the early stages of perimenopause. The brain fog is real. So if you find me in a meeting and I can't remember someone's name, or there's a word I can't remember, do you know what you can do? You can actually just support me and say the name or help if you can, because there's nothing worse when you're sitting there and feel like everyone's looking at you going, Laura's lost the plot. So a lot of what we've done in Distilled is around breaking that stigma. We've done working groups with the women in Distilled to talk with them to figure out kind of what their symptoms were. There's the symptoms, you can look it up online, but it's a mixture of physical and mental symptoms, and the different symptoms require different support. So we've done those working groups in Distilled to figure out where our female employees need support. We've put an awful lot of supports in place. So we have menopause time off. So we have 10 days menopause time off. You can take 3 days per year. We have flexible working arrangements if somebody needs it, if symptoms are bad. Things like buying, we will refund the cost of books, apps, podcasts, where people want to educate themselves. We have an EAP in place. Our health insurance has multiple benefits for our employees around the menopause as well. We have menopause champions. We have male allies across the business. We're training. We've actually just completed the first kind of all company training yesterday with Loretta from the Menopause Hub. And that was an education piece for all of our employees in terms of, this is what the menopause is. This is what the perimenopause is. There's people in the workplace going through it, and this is how you can support them. And then we're going to go on now and do some further training for managers. So how managers can support somebody, as they go through this. And it's really about removing the stigma, educating employees, having our employees understanding what it is, and raising awareness, around the business. And for our female employees, that it's okay not to feel okay. We have we're on Slack here in Distilled, and one of the things that we have is a battery. So if you're next to your name, so if you're feeling good, like your phone, the battery is green. If your charge is down, the battery is red. And there's times where you'll reach out to another female colleague and say, look, I noticed your battery is down. Is everything okay? And it's just having those conversations and supporting each other as well.
Brilliant, Laura. Thank you. And I think one of the things that strikes me in there is if we think of our leaders and our managers and equipping them to be ready for the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because not everybody knows how to handle every
No,
conversation.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely not. And it can be an uncomfortable conversation. Or, you know, some managers are more comfortable about it. Some people are more educated than others about it. But I think equipping them, you know, with the training and education piece, how to answer the questions and how to support the employees. And sometimes it's not even knowing how to support, but it's asking, how can I support you during this? And then as a manager, knowing, okay, well, I can give Laura flexibility, or, you know, maybe I can recommend that she takes a couple of days off if she wants it, or point her in the directions of books, or get her a fan for her desk, or tell her about the EAP. But it's just knowing all of the resources that are available and making the employee feel comfortable if they're just not feeling 100%. And like, that's, as I said, it's both the mental symptoms and the physical symptoms, and the physical symptoms can be quite debilitating as well. So it's just really to understand what's going on and to offer the support, and not to shy away from the conversation, because there's nothing worse than, you know, if you want to bring something up that's tough to bring up, and
Yeah.
then if a manager, or, you know, someone that you bring it up to, just kind of sweeps it to one side, because it's really, you know, it's a tough thing to bring to the table. And I think when you do bring it to the table, your manager needs to be ready to have that conversation with you, not to get all embarrassed and change the subject, which I think historically, when awareness wasn't there, is what would have happened. And I think historically, I think women just wouldn't have brought it to the table. They just kind of would have gotten on with things. Whereas, you know, I think nowadays, I remember I don't know if there's anyone from Facebook on the call, but I remember years ago going to a conference in Facebook, and, you know, they talked about bringing your full self to work. And I remember at the time, you know, I was young, free and single at the time, I'll say, didn't have too many responsibilities. And I remember kind of chuckling at it, thinking, bringing your full self to work. People do bring their full selves to work. And I think COVID actually catapulted people's full selves into work. And I just think it's so important that as a company, that you support your employees at each stage of their life. And, you know, for one team, like I have a team of 6, you know, we're all going through different things. You know, some people are buying houses, different things like that. We're all going through different phases, but as a company, it's really important to support each of those phases.
Yeah, and you mentioned, so your menopause policy was first brought in 1999, right?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, has that changed over the last
It,
number of years a little
it,
bit?
it has, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, we had it as a policy in 1999, and if I'm being honest, like, yes, we were proactive, you know, we came to the table, but what we weren't kind of pushing at that stage was the education piece within the workplace. You know, it was there, and, you know, managers were aware, you know, we would train them in it, they would be aware that it was there, but we didn't go that step further. And I think, you know, there's been a lot of awareness, you know, people are talking about it more, which I think is a fantastic thing. And because of that, we've kind of pushed forward with the training and education piece. And look, as I said, the session that we did yesterday with all employees, I mean, the feedback was just amazing from both male and female employees. And I'm really looking forward to, you know, the manager session that we're doing. And I think things like, you know, the menopause awards that you've brought in and Great Places to Work really just, you know, bring it to the forefront. And I think that's just it's amazing.
Yeah, it's one of the things we actually chatted about that day. Was one of the things that we were really pleased about is that often we see things like these being led out by, you know, companies in the US, and they bring in new progressive policies, and sometimes in Ireland we feel like we're catching up all the time.
Yeah.
Actually, when we looked at the spread of those menopause workplaces of excellence, the level of Irish Indigenous organisation that was pushing the boat out was really inspiring. And actually, Neil's just popped in there around, like, the civil service have just sent out, they're certainly mandating that all public service organisations are going to have a working policy next year.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's huge momentum and movement. And it's being spearheaded from here, right? Which is here in Ireland, which is, you know, it's a really, you know, we're really proud to be part of that.
Yeah. And I
Mm.
think in Distilled as well, we like to be early adapters of policies. Like recently as well, we brought out policy. We were the first company in Ireland to bring it out. It was around if you get diagnosed with an illness while you're on maternity leave, you know, you're not taking your maternity leave and being ill, you delay your maternity leave while you get over the illness. And that was something that hadn't been recognised at all anywhere. And now it's been brought into law in Ireland, which is absolutely amazing. But the number of women who, while they're on maternity leave, you know, that can get diagnosed with an illness, and then they're expected to just take maternity leave and have no sick leave. And again, that's another thing where supporting, you know, every stage of an employee's life is so important.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we like what you're doing in Distilled, this is one of a, you know, a part of a diverse approach to well-being and supporting people to perform and be their best, right? So I know we've really focused in on this today, but it
Yeah.
really is part of a holistic view of people within the organization, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, that overarching well-being piece is absolutely massive. And we were just talking before the call here. And you know, there's sometimes, you know, you might spend more time, you know, in a week with your work colleagues than you might with your family or friends. And I think companies have a responsibility, a duty of care to their employees. And it's really important to put all of these things in place. And what you get back, you know, it's not a one-way street. It's not companies putting these things in place. You know, Distilled is very much so a high performance culture. You know, our employees you know, give back 100-fold, but they know that we look after them. We know that they know that if something in their life comes up, you know, it could be a bereavement, it could be an engagement, it could be whatever it is, we support them, and we're there to celebrate the great things, and then we're there to support, you know, during the tough times as well. And that's something, you know, that I would hold kind of dear to my heart, because I think it's you know, it's extremely important.
Yeah. Laura, lots of like fantastic feedback coming in, and you know, people remind us that not everybody's doing what Distilled's doing, right? So still plenty of progress to be made as well. Just one little technicality, your battery, is that something that appears automatically on Slack, or is it a note, or how does that work from a technical point of view?
Oh gosh, you're asking me a technical question now, Fanny. The worst person in the business too. So it's on Slack. So you have your name on Slack, and beside your name is a battery. It's your IT ops team can do it. And if you're feeling great, your battery is fully green. But if you have a day where you're not feeling 100%, and it's not just the menopause, it can be any other reason why your battery might be a bit flat, but people will put it in, and it's a really good, like if I saw somebody in my team whose battery was flat, I'd reach out and say, "Are you okay?" Or you know, across the business, I'd reach out. But it's a really good way for people to support each other, and also to say, "Look, it's okay not to feel okay." And you know, to put that out there. So you know, it's helped us. And you know, we have mental health champions as well, and they would keep an eye, you know, if somebody's battery is flat as well, and you know, just keep the conversation going, because we're not all at 100% every single day. And I think that's okay as well. And I think it's good to flag it as well, because you know, if you don't know what's going on with somebody, it can be hard to understand where they're at. So you know, that's just something that we do.
Yeah, I love it. I love the simplicity of it, but yet high impact, right? It's just such a
Absolutely, yeah.
fantastic thing. Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lots of stuff coming in the chat and that kind of thing. So guys, keep the questions coming. We're gonna have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. Um, but yeah, and really pleased that you're able to share kind of all the stuff that you're doing, Laura, and you know, fair play to you and the team, really pushing the boat out around, you know, keeping this conversation alive across so many different elements that are having impact on people. Um, Okay, I'm going to keep going. So we are going to chat more now around kind of career clarity and leadership and that kind of piece. And we would see this kind of manifesting at various different levels, people understanding, you know, where their own careers are going, what communities they can be a part of. And then at an organizational level, how are people creating spaces for continuous learning, for internal mobility, and people being able to explore, I suppose, a diversity of roles within an organization. And CPL are such a fantastic example here of a culture that allow everybody, but women in particular, to unlock talents and to chase their ambitions, right? So delighted to introduce CPL, another best workplace for women. And Sharon Vize, who's the group HR director, is going to be taking us through their approach today. So Sharon's member of the CPL group executive, been instrumental in driving the culture of CPL is it 13 countries now?
10
Sharon,
countries, yeah, yeah,
yeah, a small
yeah.
14,000 people. So
Oh,
keeping it small, keeping it manageable, and through a very sophisticated kind of HR business partnering model as well. So working both with leaders and with people kind of really, doing that kind of dynamic approach to HR. And then apparently you have spare time too, where you're doing things like board members of Open Doors and on the IBEC Pensions Working Group, and coming along and speaking at group-based work events. So thanks, Sharon. I'm gonna hand over to you.
thanks a million, Fania, and thank you so much for inviting me to come along this morning to talk to you about the work that we've done in CPL. And I just want to say congratulations to Laura and everyone at Distilled, because I know you've done fantastic work around menopause, and we've been inspired at CPL with the work that you've done. So I suppose moving on to my first slide there, if we can just move on, that'd be great. So really just to give you, I suppose, a little bit of a background around CPL, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard of CPL as an organisation. We're traditionally known as a recruitment company, but we like to see ourselves as a talent solution business. And I suppose our vision is to be the world's best at transforming our clients through sustainable talent solutions and experiences. We've got a real mix, I suppose, of business areas across the whole entire talent spectrum. We have a really rich geographical portfolio across 13 countries. We employ just over 1,000 people on a permanent basis within the core CPL group. And then we have, on average, between 13 and 14,000 people on our flexible talent, where we deploy people across our client sites across 13 countries. So really, we're there to help organizations thrive in the future of work through transformational talent solutions. And we enable businesses, of course, to focus on their core area of competence while we support their talent needs. And I suppose when I break it down and when we're talking to recruiters, it's amazing that our recruiters can have such a profound impact on somebody's career because they help them to find their dream job. So from a CPL perspective, we think that's a really important role that we play, because your career is one of the most, well, it is the most important thing that you will have throughout your lifespan, in terms of what you do, how you develop your skills, how you become competent, how you move roles, move industries, and all of that. So we feel that we play a significant role in that. So moving on to the second slide, just to give you a little bit of a sense around our demographics. So our gender breakdown within CPL at this point in time, up until the end of October, we have 63% female and 38% male. So it's a very dominant female industry as such. We're led by a lady called Lorna Khan, so our CEO being female, and our board directors is made up of 75% female and 25% male. Our group exec, of which I'm a member of that, we have 10 people who are responsible for running the company on a day-to-day basis, and we have a 50-50 percentage balance on that between male and female. And then you can see the other figures there across leadership, management, and below management. And I suppose you can see as well that our below manager, that we do have a high percentage of females who sit within those roles, and they're across recruitment, professional service roles, and support roles. And I sometimes think, if you think of recruitment, it is it's a job that requires individuals to have, really excellent ability to develop relationships, to be have really strong empathy skills, authenticity, and you would tend to see that those type of capabilities would sit really well within the female network. So, but it's not something that we go out into the marketplace to just recruit from the female gender. Of course, we have got very, I suppose, sophisticated recruitment processes, etc., to ensure that there's no unconscious bias in our recruitment or anything like that. So that just gives you an idea in terms of our breakdown across CPL. And then I have two polls that I've put into the webinar for this morning, and it sort of takes us before we get into the next slide. And the first one is that I want to ask is, who has been your most significant role model within your career or your life to date? Has that been female friends, female colleagues, female professional peers? Has it been your mother, a guardian, or a wife, or has it been a male significant other? And I suppose I'm asking that question because I do feel that by having, you know, role models, whether they are male or female, within your life, they can have such an impact in terms of your career and how you progress, etc. So if you can take a minute there just to select to select one there, so we can see senses like across.
Well, their votes are flying in, aren't they, Sharon?
I can't see. Can't see you, Jed.
Um,
Probably come up now for me. Has it come up there?
so I'd give you a sense of it there, right? So I don't know if you can see that, but
Yeah,
it's
I can see it.
okay,
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah, go for it.
yeah,
So
yeah. So that's interesting. It's obviously, it's quite broad across the group. And if you look at the numbers, 2040, yeah, so it's quite broad. And I suppose, as I said, I'm asking that question really on the basis to see, you know, if people have, you know, sought out, or if they've identified a role model as such, you know, within their career, somebody that they can look up to, that they can support them, etc. And I know myself, as I've gone through my career, I've had multiple role models. It may have been my boss, it may have been, you know, a really close friend of mine who would have been a professional, who I would have seen their career evolve. And it's somebody that you can talk to, that you can bounce off, you know, any challenges you have, or how you may navigate a particular issue, etc. And I always think it's somebody that's, you know, that's really there, that's got your back as such. And it's something that we focus on within CPL, and it's something naturally that has come through the business. And if we just move on to the next slide, I can explain to you where this has come from. So, and talk about some of the practices that we have. So, so if I take there, for example, our Positive Female Role Model Awards, this is something that we do on an annual basis within CPL, where we ask all of our employees to nominate those individuals who they believe have been role models within the organization. And that may be a peer, it may be your manager, or it may be somebody that you've come into contact throughout the business. And in addition to that, one of the great things that we did in this year for International Women's Day was that we organised an event where we empowered a group of females across our business to share experiences that they've had, or challenging experiences. And it's quite powerful when you hear from other people within your organization in terms of challenges that they've overcome within their career, whether it be personal, or it's impacted their career, or whatever. And it's quite a powerful thing to do. But I think by having that female role model a persona as such within your life, it gives you such great comfort. It supports you in any challenges that you may have. And we have found that it's been something that's really, it's really supported us in what we call our inclusive leadership within CPL. And we see that that's something that really underpins our culture. And when we look at inclusive leadership, and we've done specific training on it within our D&I framework, I suppose as an organisation, we've given a clear commitment that we're committed to D&I. We're committed to creating a really amazing inclusive culture. And you can only do that by supporting your people, by creating space for people to share their stories, to talk about different things that have happened to them throughout their career journey, etc. Also raising awareness of bias that can go on in the workplace. We want our people also to be curious, to have a really open mindset, and to learn from each other. And we do that through all of these programs that I have here on the screen. We also feel that cultural intelligence is really important. We want all of our people within CPL to be really interested in other cultures, and to understand that the impact that, you know, understanding those cultures can have within the workplace. And as explaining to the guys beforehand, that we're celebrating Diwali this afternoon within CPL. We do have a cohort of Indian employees, and we want to be able to recognise that. So we always try to have a very broad agenda in terms of the different programs and initiatives that we have. But our inclusive leadership really underpins absolutely everything that we do across all of our programs. And all of our programs, they're open to everybody. So from everything that we do across our working parents, our Be Proud cafes, which have been really successful. Like on an average basis in a year, we would probably operate between 35 and 40 cafes. And they run across everything from menopause, dementia, mental health, working parents and guardians. And it's driven from the bottom. It's driven from our employees, which is really important to us. But one thing we don't do, and I see an awful lot of it, particularly, on LinkedIn and different events and that, we don't have core networks specifically for women. They're for all of our employees. And if I take menopause, and I know Laura has spoken about that, we really drive our male allyship around all of our programs and our female allyship. Like, for example, International Men's Day this last year, one of our male employees spoke about the challenges that he has encountered through illness. We've had other people talk about their, their mental health and how it's impacted them at work and the supports that they've got. And we think that people really connect with those personal stories, and that makes such an impact across our business. So driving allyship across all our programs is really important to us. So when we look at all of those programs, around working parents, I say, and everything else, it's open to everybody. It's around creating that inclusive culture at all times in everything that we do. And then on our DE&I strategy, we look at 4 key areas around inclusive workplace. Building competence in our leaders is really important. Inclusive leadership, inclusive language, inclusive recruitment. We have dedicated training around that. And we also partner with a number of external organisations like Open Doors, like NCIB, like Trinity Centre for People with Intellectual Disability, to educate us and educate our people on the value of understanding inclusiveness, at every type of spectrum that you can think of. And then also pushing that agenda with our suppliers as well. I'm sure there's many organisations here that when they're deciding to engage with particular suppliers to provide services, they want to ensure that those organisations, have the same mindset. They're talking, the same language as such. And we actually did a survey on our suppliers earlier this year to understand what their commitment is to D&I, to sustainability, to the SDG goals, to lots of different stuff. So we can get a sense of what the perceptions are out there with suppliers that we're working with. And then moving on to the development side, obviously career development and promotions is so critical within a business of our size. Traditionally, recruiters and people who work in the talent space, they like to see their careers move quickly, but the framework that you have in place has to be really transparent and consistent. And one of the things that we felt back in 2021 when we got our Great Place to Work survey results were, our people were telling us that it wasn't clear, it wasn't transparent. They wanted more, they wanted to understand how they could get to the next level and what they needed to do that. So we embarked on a journey where we worked with groups of people across the organisation and across our 13 countries, where we developed a really clear career development framework for each of our business areas. So from the day you joined and through your career, what you could expect at each stage of that. And that was also, I suppose, the fundamental piece underneath that was our core competency framework, which really defined what it is we expect all of our people, what capabilities and what behaviours we want them to have at each stage of that journey. And we defined that for below manager and above manager. So it was really clear. And to date, we've trained about 900 people in that programme. We rolled it out. We started the rollout at the end of the summer last year. So we've trained about 800 people directly on that programme. And then what we've also done is we've ensured that our promotion process sits really nicely alongside that. So it's really explicit. And everything now sits on a portal, frankly, that we use. We've worked really closely with that supplier to make sure that it's been developed to meet our needs specifically. So there's no ambiguity and people are really clear. And then on the development piece, we've got a number of key programs that our learning and development teams have developed. And they focus across, obviously, leadership development. So we have a program which is called Leading the Future, and that looks at everything across team management, delegation, problem solving, but it's done through a lens of coaching. So there's a real clear collaboration between leading and coaching and bringing people through. So we've that program has been running for 2 years, and then future. So it's about making sure that all of our people are clear about, all of the requirements that they need to have, the skills, the capability to ensure that they can give their very best at work through our Coaching the Future program. And then sustainability, which is key to us. We launched our sustainability strategy and report. We have 5 clear SDG goals. One of those in particular about reduced inequalities. And it's not just looking at the internal piece, it's also the external. So ensuring that we work really closely with our clients, to ensure that we're attracting, a diverse pool of talent, helping our clients come up with tools and programs that they can support in terms of attracting that talent through their various recruitment programs. So there's lots that's going on within that space, and you're all very welcome to go onto our website and download our sustainability strategy and report. It gives a really, I suppose, comprehensive overview of everything that we do across all of those key 5 areas. And everything that I've spoken about on this is fed into that as well. So it's really comprehensive. But I suppose on the management and personal development side, we do lots of work. On average, we would have between, I'd say, 500 and 700 people that would attend training on a monthly basis. We use the expertise within our own business to train people, whether it be on core technical skills to do with their role, or if it's to do more so on the personal development side around developing their network skills, their business development skills, or key skills that are required in order so that, individuals are delivering better for our clients on a daily basis. So that gives you an idea of all of the practices that we have in place at the moment. And looking ahead to the future on the next slide, we have lots of priorities from a people and culture perspective. But I suppose the key ones that I just wanted to highlight today, obviously we're on a journey from a menopause perspective. We're going to partner with the Menopause Hub. We've done lots of work internally on that through our Be Proud cafes. We're also going to do a lot of work with Fertility Matters, which is a UK company. We found them through the CIPD, and very similar to the menopause around education, policy development, raising awareness, bringing issues under fertility into the workplace and talking about them. D&I, it will, that's core to everything that we do. Our working parents and carers, we really want to tap into the dads within our organisation and understand more clearly in terms of the role that they have to play, and to try and encourage them to avail of our policies and practices that we have in place. We know all our female employees are doing it, but we want to tap into the dads much more. And well-being is really key. Like Laura, we do have our mental health champions. I think we have over 300 people in the business who've been trained as mental health champions. We're doing a big piece of work with Sea Change, and we're looking at well-being across physical health, mental health, personal health, and also social connections. COVID, I think, I suppose, catapulted us into a virtual world. And as we know from today, we're still in that world, and we're trying to get people to be more inclined to socially connect. We do have a hybrid working policy. We want more people to come back into the office so that they can meet each other and really develop on those personal connections. And then 2 of the key projects that we're focusing on in the next 12 months, one is around succession planning. It's something as an organisation that we've really never peeled back and looked at the growth potential within our organisation of our talent, and identifying those individuals that we believe are the future of our organisation. And that's really critical to us. There's a lot of us at the senior table who would be in our late 40s, early 50s. We're not going to be here forever, so we need to make sure that we manage and look after that talent as it comes through. So leadership development is going to be critical in the support of that. And I'm currently working with a number of external providers in terms of how we can develop that curriculum and looking at it across probably 3 areas within the business. One for those who are maybe, specialists in their areas, may not necessarily manage a team, but are seen as having that bright future with really strong leadership capability. The second layer being then those that do manage teams that have responsibility for key business areas. We want them to grow their businesses in different geographical areas. So we need to equip them with the skills and the capabilities in order to do that and be the best version of themselves from a leadership perspective. And then, of course, our more senior people, to ensure that we challenge them, that we really need to look at themselves internally leadership styles, their qualities, their attributes, and how they can then drive the organization forward. So there's an awful lot that we have to do still in that area, but there are aspirations and our plans for the future. And then I suppose really just to finish off on the last slide there, in terms of career, and I give this advice from me personally, is that, you know, each individual should own their career. They should have responsibility for their career path, for their aspiration, where they want to be. And what I'm saying is that you shouldn't really wait for somebody to tap you and present you with that opportunity. You should have that hunger in you to actually go forward and do it. But what we have to do as an organization is make sure that we enable people and give them the framework and the tools in which they can do that. And we think with the programs that we believe that the programs that we have in place, that is what we're striving to do at this point in time.
Sharon,
any questions?
So much that. Jeepers, take a breath. There's so much going on.
I know, sorry. I probably went over. I spoke too much.
No, it's just fantastic to hear it and hear about all the ways you're doing it, but also the way that you're strategically thinking about it as well, right? And I think we've always been quite aligned in this idea of, like, we would talk about a great place to work for all, right? So this is about things that are available for everybody, and just making sure we're understanding where people are at, what those best supports are going to look like, and then matching that ambition, right? And being able to push on through all of that. There are a couple of questions, but I tell you what, we might jump into Aoife's piece and then we'll come back.
Apologies.
Come back. Oh, jeez, no, don't be sorry at all. You could have just kept going. And what I'll do is I'll enter Aoife and then we'll come back on a couple of the questions that I know that people have come in with. So some of you are going to recognize Aoife from the telly. So Aoife is an accredited parent coach, and she's the founder of Parent Support, where she really supports organizations to empower working parents and caregivers as we all live this very real juggle, right, between blending work and family life. I think, look, Aoife, over to you. And I think what I'm really looking forward to here is this bit about what individuals can take away from today as well. So over to you, Aoife.
Great. Thank you so much, Fiona. And it's lovely to be here. Thanks to Great Places for inviting me on to this morning's panel. It is beautiful and sunny here in Dublin, and it's amazing. And I always love to see so many people, particularly when I'm presenting sessions, seeing so many tuned in all over the world. It's fabulous. So Fiona just gave a little bit of an introduction there already, but I'm just going to share a little bit about me for anyone that doesn't know me. If you just want to move on the slide there. So my name is Aoife. I'm a parent coach. I'm a mum of 3. I'm founder of Parent Support. I have been supporting families for the last 22 years, primarily with the Health Service Executive, working in early intervention and children in care. And in 2013, my 4th baby came along, and it was Parent Support. And I feel so honoured and grateful to be supporting hundreds of families in the last 10 years. And it's mostly, like Fiona said, they're supporting working families, carers, guardians, in the form of parenting talks, from content, from kind of returning after maternity leave, paternity, adoptive leave, from tots right through up to the teenage years. And being a mom of a 6, 12, preteen and teenager, we're getting it all thrown at us at the moment. So when I work with my clients, it's lovely just to be there and know that you're kind of living it as well. But I also do a little bit of TV and radio, and mostly Ireland AM at the weekends. And I did a long slot with Dermot and Dave before they split up recently. But yeah, a nice bit of radio and TV is what I enjoy too. And so for today's session, and just over the next few minutes, because I know that everyone's time is precious, I'm going to be talking about 3 key points. So what is important to me, as in what is important to you, and when it comes to your work and your family life, because as we know it can be a real juggle. Tackling those feelings of guilt as well, which can play a part in many lives, and particularly for the topic we're talking about today is empowering women. It's finding that kind of balance, and is there such a thing? And the pressure we can often put ourselves under to having all our ducks in a row, which can often be quite difficult. And then just that self-care piece, like what do we do for ourselves? And we're brilliant and amazing when it comes to the kids, but sometimes we forget about ourselves. I'm going to just share a little bit about that. Recently, I actually did my own market research survey, with old, current, and potentially new clients. And I was asking that big question as to like, what are currently the challenges in the workplace for your working employees, for your families, your carers and guardians in the workplace? And the top 3 challenges that came up were feelings of overwhelm and guilt when trying to manage time and boundaries with the kids and working around working schedule and family life, and the reality of that, the reality of looking after a sick child, managing childcare, you know, and also having those work commitments. And then finally, supporting our children's needs, both emotionally and behaviorally, from, again, toddlers right through up to our teenagers and young adults. And if you want to go on to the next slide, like, for the most part, you know, every family situation is very different, whether it be, you know, you're a single parent, you're part of a blended family, you're co-parenting, or, you know, whether you've got a brood at home. We've got different personalities, different ages and stages of development, which means there are going to be different needs, different challenges. And we've got different parenting styles, which can have a significant impact, you know, on our day-to-day life. But what's important is that, you know, we can identify what's important to me and to you in your working and family life, and what you need to prioritize both in your work and your family life, so that you feel like you are essentially living by your own values. And I take you through there to the next slide, where, you know, a lot of my clients, and I'm sharing a series of pictures there of what's important in my life, being my family, my friendships, and my work, and what I love and what I'm passionate about in my work. And it's interesting because the same worries, concerns, and challenges come up for so many of us, but we don't know what's going on in people's lives. We really don't. And that's why it's about being mindful of the person beside you. Maybe if you are a team leader or a boss, you don't know what might be going on, and the kind of the chaos that might be happening at home, and everyone's just trying to kind of keep it all calm when they come into work. And it can be a real stressor point for so many. But you know, asking the question, what's important to me, will look differently for us all. And you say career and family and kids and relationships, health and self-care. And one exercise that I often encourage clients to do is recognize, well, what are my top 5 values? When we live by our values, life can flow that little bit easier. It can be, we can simplify it to a point where, you know, at times, if we are struggling, it's because we are not living by our values as such. And it will be, like I said, be different for us all. So when we recognize those top, you know, priorities in our life, it often can help us gauge where we want to, and maybe where we want to spend our time. And it can help us make decisions that little bit easier as well. One part of all of this I mentioned there about guilt, and it's a poll that I've the third poll of the morning there, if you want to put it out, and it is all about that managing those feelings of guilt. You'll see, have you experienced feelings of guilt or trying to balance work and family life? And you'll see there the different options. I'd love to kind of get a sense as to where people are at and how they might be feeling. And this is going to vary depending on, again, what's going on at home. You might have a toddler that's really struggling with separating from you in the morning. You might have a primary school child that's really struggling with, you know, school avoidance, navigating friendships. You might have, you know, a teenager that's really experiencing a lot of anxiety and worry, again, navigating those friendships online. Cyberbullying, they might be struggling with self-esteem and confidence. They might be going into their mock exams coming up after the Christmas break, entering into the exam years. Oh, you know, and we're trying to be there as much as possible for our kids, and that can often play a big part in then how we feel. I don't know what's come in there, Fenia, if there's anything that's
I mean, I'm very jealous of the 6 people who've never felt guilty. So if they could pass on all of their tips to me, that would be great. Because they're 45%, 40% up at yes frequently or yes occasionally. So yeah.
And this is the reality, I think. And again, it depends on who is in your house, what the challenges are, and both Sharon and Laura kind of mentioned there just the big stuff that can be happening in people's lives: family separation, bereavement, you know, it could be a marriage breakup. There's so much that could be happening. A new baby arriving, you know, and that can kind of pull the rug from under the little one's feet. But a lot can be happening in our lives that we don't really see the impact it has when we're, again, trying to constantly juggle. And when I talk about feelings of guilt, and going on to the next slide there, I suppose it's really important that we recognize and focus on, but what does trigger those feelings of guilt, essentially, and what has actually helped me in the past? What has been really effective? Is it speaking to family, that good listening ear, you know, with your friends? Is it going and talking to your team leader, your boss, and saying, look, I'm really struggling right now? And I loved what Laura shared about that, the battery ticking in, and being aware. And while, you know, there might be those resources and supports in work, it's important that we do ask for help, but also recognizing that, you know, for our jobs, we are in our jobs to pay the bills, and that might be something that's non-negotiable for us right now. But what can I influence? So a lot of the time I hear clients talk about their children being upset because maybe parents and carers can't drop them or pick them up from school, or they're traveling and they can't be there at bedtimes, or maybe we're just losing it, that we're being easily triggered with behaviors and the challenges at home. We're depleted of energy, and you know, we can get quite upset with the kids, and that can really kind of lay on the guilt as well. So if you are, you know, maybe there is kids at home that is struggling with the behavior, and they're really trying to get your attention, and it's happening in the evening times when we're trying to juggle it all, it's focusing on, well, what can I influence here? And a lot of my talks are focused on particular challenges and particular aspects of family life. So it's like, what can I do and how can I help my child? But also, what kind of time can I spend with them? And maybe that's at the weekends when things are that a little bit quieter, and you know, you can kind of influence that time and encourage that time as best possible. And then lastly, just that self-care. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we are so great at making sure that the kids have got their coats on their back going out to school, their belly is full of brekkie, they've got their healthy lunches, you know, they're tucked up in bed at night time, although I know that's also can be a crazy time. But we are not great at looking after ourselves, and this coincides with the values that we hold in our lives. And sometimes it's just having a good old laugh with your best friend. Maybe it's having a date night with your partner. Maybe it is getting out for a walk, putting the earpods on and listen to a podcast. Maybe it is going for a cup of tea and reading a book on your own. This will be all very different for us all, but it's safe to say that we cannot pour from an empty cup. If we are depleted, if we are easily triggered, if we're exhausted, if we're finding things, you know, there's that lack of motivation. Recharging and giving ourselves that bit of TLC can play a huge part in revitalizing where we're at, both in our working life, but also at home as well. I've so much more to give, but that's all I have for today. Thank you everyone for listening in, and yeah, thanks to Fania as well for
Aoife, thank you so much. And I think, you know, it's an element we really wanted to have in this session, which was to take that 5-10 minutes for people to think about their own selves in all of this, right? So we're all busy delivering for our home lives, our work lives, we're all pushing on, we're all doing kind of as much as we can, but also to take those couple of moments and reflect on our own piece and our own priorities and our own values. And I really encourage everybody to kind of take that away with them today. So thank you so much, guys. There is one question that's come in from a number of different people, and I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on it, which is, you know, Laura, you've talked about how, you know, you've brought leaders along with you throughout your journey. Sharon, you're talking about, you know, that level of allyship and that kind of piece, and Niamh, and how we get various stakeholders involved. If you were to give advice for people on the call today whose maybe organizations aren't where they want them to be, and they're looking to get that level of allyship or leadership buy-in, you know, be it rolling out a menopause policy or going after, you know, leadership development or whatever it might be, any kind of key piece of advice that you'd give people?
I think really you have to start at your leadership team. So, for example, if you're looking for male allies to be more involved in discussions around women's health, you get your senior level involved in it. And then you just continually have the conversations with your male colleagues. you don't be embarrassed to talk about menopause, to talk about fertility, to talk about any other, you know, health issues or whatever it may be. And that's what we've done at CPL, Fania, and we feel it's worked well. You know, to have male colleagues come to you after, for example, like a menopause cafe, to thank you because they now understand what their partner at home is going through, or why their mother behaved the way she did when they were a teenager, you know, and it's about awareness. But I also think the key thing as well is, and I said it, we're talking about their experiences. Like, I host the Menopause Cafe, I'm in the middle of it, I talk about it, I've pulled back warts and all. If you'd asked me 5 years ago to do it, I would have said no, because I wasn't in that place, but I am now, and I understand the impact it has. So it's about the conversations and about just having a really open culture around it.
Yeah.
Starting at the top.
Yeah, I'd agree with what Sharon said. And I think what I'd add to that is, you know, letting, you know, if it's male allies about menopause, letting them know what the ask of them is, because you know, asking someone to be a male ally can be a little bit scary, because they think, oh my God, I'm going to arrive into this, you know, cafe or group of women that are going through something. What do you want from me? So it's explaining what you want from them and explaining the role that they can play, you know, in relation to being an ally, and just making it really clear for them. And I think once they know that, they'll embrace it, because if you don't explain the ask, it can be a bit scary, and people are afraid that they'll say or do the wrong thing. Whereas if you explain it clearly to them, and, you know, there's the training, support and all that available, and, you know, encourage them to ask, you know, people how they can support them as well. You know, I think that it's just making them comfortable with it as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Guys, thank you so much. We're at 11, so I'm going to let people go, right? But thank you, Sharon, Laura, Aoife, for your really insightful presentations. Lots of inspiration here this morning. I mean, even the sun came out there for a second in Mayo. It was so inspired. It was like so ready.
Wow.
And
Good
then I started speaking again, and it's all clouded over. So I don't know what's happening. Particular shout out to our own Great Place to Work team, and particularly to Akshita, who's been busy working there in the background and getting the polls live and the whole lot. And really looking forward to seeing you all in the next one. So thank you all so much for this morning, and see you soon.
Thanks a million, Fania.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.